you said, I want to give her the $17,500, I want to give her the $15,000.
Family, you're not going to believe this twist in Cardi B's $24 million court battle. After weeks of headlines, courtroom drama, and emotional testimonies, Cardi B walked out the winner. But what happened next left even the judge stunned. The lawyer, representing the security guard, Mrs. Ellis, the woman who accused Cardi of assault, suddenly switched gears. After fighting tooth and nail for millions of dollars, that lawyer is now begging Cardi B for compensation. Just something, anything to move on with their life. And before we break it down, let's wait and watch this clip to see what is going on.
If you said, I want to give her the $17,500, I want to give her the $15,000, and I want to give her another $250,000 for pain and suffering, you are allowed to do that. It is a number that you can come up with. During the 7.5 years that she's been suffering, you may say, I would like to give her $100 a day. For 1 year, that's $36,000. And for 7 years, that comes up to $270,000. We're not looking for millions of dollars like the defendant said. That's not what we're looking for. We're really looking for a simple amount of money that can make her whole, give her something that's fair so she can get some form of compensation, some form of closure, and move on with her life. That is all we're asking you to do.
Yes, you heard that right. The same legal team that once demanded a jaw-dropping $24 million payout is now backpedaling. They're no longer talking about millions, no longer demanding Cardi's fortune. Instead, they're pleading for something to move on with life. The shift has left fans shocked, critics confused, and Cardi B's team standing firm. Let's rewind for a moment. This all started with allegations that Cardi had assaulted Mrs. Ellis years ago during a heated exchange. The lawsuit painted Cardi as reckless, violent, and dangerous. But after weeks in court, the evidence didn't add up. Witness testimonies crumbled. Even medical records didn't support the claims. And finally, the judge made it clear. Cardi B was not guilty on all charges. That verdict should have been the end of the story. Cardi, vindicated. Mrs. Ellis and her lawyer, defeated. Case closed. But then came this shocking twist. The lawyer approaching Cardi not with more fire, but with a request. Some kind of payout to move on. The audacity of it left people asking, is this justice or desperation? Fans quickly jumped into the conversation. Many argued that Mrs. Ellis's lawyer had wasted years dragging Cardi through courtrooms and tabloids, only to fold at the finish line. Others speculated that this plea wasn't about justice at all. It was about face-saving, about walking away with something to justify the years of fighting. And let's be real. This plea opens up a flood of questions. Why beg for money after losing the case? Why not just accept the verdict and move on? Could it be that the legal team knew they never had a strong case, but hoped the pressure would force Cardi into a settlement? If so, Cardi just flipped the script on an age-old celebrity playbook. Inside the courtroom, sources said Cardi's reaction was priceless. She wasn't angry. She wasn't shaken. She simply looked at her team, shook her head, and reminded them, "We won." To Cardi, this was proof that her fight had been worth it. No settlements, no hush money, no bending under pressure. Outside the courthouse, the reaction was even more dramatic. Supporters cheered Cardi's resilience, while critics accused Mrs. Ellis's lawyer of trying to manipulate the system one last time. Social media lit up with memes, hashtags, and fiery debates. Some fans even joked, imagine losing a $24 million case and then asking for gas money on the way out. But behind the humor, there's a deeper, more troubling question. What does this mean for celebrities going forward? If lawyers can drag stars into court with flimsy accusations, only to beg for compensation after losing, are we looking at a dangerous new trend of legal extortion? And here's where the story turns emotional, because Cardi B herself admitted this case cost her valuable time. Time with her children, time with her music, time she will never get back. To hear the same team that stole that time now begging for money? It's a twist that has fans demanding Cardi go even further. Should she countersue? Should she press for penalties? Or should she close this chapter once and for all? The backlash came fast and fierce. Fans flooded social media with comments mocking Mrs. Ellis's lawyer. "You went from $24 million to begging for grocery money," one viral tweet read. Another fan said bluntly, "This isn't justice. This is desperation wrapped in a lawyer's suit." The internet had spoken, and it wasn't kind. But it wasn't just fans roasting the situation. Legal experts weighed in too. Several attorneys told news outlets that this sudden plea for something to move on looked like a face-saving tactic. After such a high-profile loss, the lawyer may want to salvage dignity, one attorney explained. But legally speaking, Cardi B has no obligation to pay them a single cent. Others went further, calling this move highly unprofessional. If you bring a $24 million claim into court, you can't suddenly change your story after the verdict. It sends a dangerous message that lawsuits can be used as fishing expeditions, hoping to grab anything even after losing. That, experts say, undermines the credibility of the justice system. Cardi's supporters saw this as proof of her strength. For years, stars have quietly settled cases to avoid headlines, even when they were innocent. Cardi, however, refused to give in. She fought, she proved her innocence, and she walked away without paying a dime. To then see her opponent beg for money after losing? To fans, that was poetic justice. Still, not everyone was celebrating. A few critics argued that Cardi should have shown mercy. They claimed that Mrs. Ellis had already lost enough, and that a small payout might have allowed everyone to move on peacefully. But that perspective was drowned out by the overwhelming chorus of voices saying, "Why reward someone who wasted years of your life?" On Instagram Live, one fan summed it up perfectly. "If you sue me for $24 million and lie about me in public, don't turn around and ask me for gas money, Cardi owes them nothing." That clip went viral, racking up millions of views and cementing the internet's stance. Cardi shouldn't pay a penny. Meanwhile, memes flooded TikTok and X, formerly Twitter. One showed a lawyer holding a sign that read, "We'll work for pocket change." Another showed Cardi B walking away from a courtroom, while someone behind her begged with empty hands. Humor became the weapon fans used to highlight the absurdity of the plea. Beyond the laughs, though, there was a serious undercurrent. People began questioning whether lawyers should face consequences for pursuing baseless multi-million-dollar lawsuits. If you waste the court's time and fail to prove your claims, why should you walk away scot-free? One legal analyst asked. Maybe it's time for countersuits to become the norm. And that's exactly where Cardi's fans want her to go. Thousands of comments demanded that she sue Mrs. Ellis and her lawyer for defamation, wasted time, and emotional distress. To them, this isn't just about winning. It's about sending a message. Don't mess with Cardi B unless you have hard evidence. As Batch 2 closes, the drama is only intensifying. The lawyer's plea for just something has ignited outrage, ridicule, and debate across the nation. But here's the bigger question. How will Cardi herself respond? Will she ignore the plea, countersue, or use this moment to make a broader stand against frivolous lawsuits? That's what we'll dive into next. With the public square roaring in her favor, the spotlight turned back to Cardi B herself. Everyone wanted to know, what's her next move? Would she grant the lawyer's desperate request? Or would she slam the door shut once and for all? Cardi hasn't issued an official statement yet, but if history tells us anything, she won't let this slide quietly. Legal experts say Cardi B is in a powerful position. With the verdict clearing her of all charges, she now holds the upper hand. If she wanted to, she could file a countersuit for defamation, for wasted time, or even for damages to her reputation. And given how vocal she's been in the past about frivolous lawsuits, that move wouldn't surprise anyone. Imagine the precedent that would set. For years, celebrities have been sitting ducks in the legal system, often paying off accusers just to make cases disappear. But if Cardi fights back and demands accountability, it could change the game. Future accusers might think twice before filing flimsy lawsuits designed to grab headlines or fast settlements. Already, some of Cardi's fans are calling her a pioneer. They're saying she could become the face of a new movement, celebrities who refuse to be exploited by opportunistic lawsuits. She's not just fighting for herself, one fan posted on TikTok. She's fighting for every celebrity who's been targeted for a quick payday. But of course, not everyone is convinced. Some critics warn that if Cardi decides to countersue, it could drag this case out even longer, keeping her tied up in court when she could be focusing on her music and her family. Sometimes the best revenge is success, one PR strategist argued. Cardi's already won. Why risk the distraction? That's the tension Cardi now faces. On one side, the chance to strike back and set a powerful example. On the other, the temptation to simply walk away, celebrate her victory, and channel her energy into her upcoming projects. It's a crossroads moment, and whichever path she chooses, the impact will be massive. Let's not forget, this isn't happening in a vacuum. Cardi B has an album coming, and every headline, every courtroom twist, every viral clip fuels the anticipation. If she addresses this drama in her music, it could transform the album into more than just a project. It could be her manifesto, a sonic declaration of survival, defiance, and victory. Her critics, however, say that intertwining lawsuits with her artistry could blur the lines between genuine pain and publicity. They argue that Cardi risks being seen as someone who thrives on drama rather than someone who rises above it. But to her die-hard supporters, that's exactly what makes her real. Cardi has never been afraid to wear her scars in public, and that raw honesty may be her secret weapon. Whether she countersues or walks away, whether she sings about it or stays silent, Cardi has already proven she can't be broken. The lawyer's last-minute plea for something to move on only underscored the fact that Cardi stood her ground and won. While the legal headlines made Cardi look unstoppable, behind the scenes there was a much different story. Courtroom battles don't just cost money, they cost time, peace of mind, and precious family moments. Cardi revealed that during this case, she missed her children's milestones. She wasn't there for her kid's first day of school. That's a memory she can never get back. Imagine being a mother, dressing your child for school, walking them into the classroom for the very first time. That's something most parents treasure. But Cardi couldn't. Instead, she was sitting in court, defending herself against accusations she says were false. It's a wound that cuts deeper than any headline can show. And it's not just the missed moments. Cardi described the emotional roller coaster, nights when she couldn't sleep, mornings when she had to plaster on a brave face, all while the world speculated about her guilt or innocence. Even when you know you're innocent, the weight of public scrutiny can feel suffocating. Fans noticed. On social media, supporters wrote messages of encouragement, reminding her that she wasn't alone. "You're fighting for all of us moms who've been lied on," one fan wrote. Another said, "We see your pain, Cardi, and we love you for standing strong." Those words may seem small, but for a woman under siege, they mattered. Still, critics were relentless. They claimed Cardi's fiery personality was her downfall, that her temper opened doors for people to exploit her. They argued she should learn to control her reactions. But isn't that the double standard? When men lash out in public, they're called passionate. When Cardi defends herself, she's called aggressive. This is where Cardi's resilience shines. Instead of retreating into silence, she chose to use her platform to speak about the dangers of frivolous lawsuits and the personal damage they cause. She's no longer just defending herself. She's raising awareness about a system that allows anyone to drag you into court with little to no evidence. And that message resonated. Parents, professionals, even fellow celebrities started speaking up, sharing stories of their own legal nightmares. Suddenly, Cardi's case wasn't just about a celebrity scandal. It was about the broken legal system, about how easy it is to weaponize lawsuits against people with influence, power, or money. But despite the support, Cardi admitted the toll was real. Her anxiety spiked. Her trust in strangers diminished. Even her ability to enjoy public outings changed, because she felt eyes on her waiting for her to slip. That kind of paranoia doesn't disappear overnight. Winning the case may have freed her legally, but emotionally, the scars remain. And yet, in true Cardi fashion, she turned her pain into power. In interviews, she hinted at putting her raw emotions into her upcoming music. She said her next album might be her most personal yet, an unfiltered diary of everything she's been through. Fans are already calling it the album of survival. As the dust begins to settle, one thing is certain. Cardi B walked out of that courtroom not just as a free woman, but as a fighter who turned her trial into a testimony. She stood against false accusations, faced relentless public pressure, and still managed to hold her ground with fiery determination. And here's where the story gets even bigger. Cardi's win doesn't just affect her, it sets a precedent. Every time a celebrity or public figure gets dragged into court with flimsy evidence, this case will be remembered. Cardi proved that you can fight back and you can win. For her legal team, this was more than just a victory. It was a statement. Her lawyers celebrated outside the courthouse, praising her bravery and resilience. They called her case a reminder that justice can still be served, even in the middle of a media circus. Cardi, however, didn't just celebrate. She gave a stern warning. She told the world she would no longer tolerate frivolous lawsuits. From now on, she said, anyone who tries to drag her name through the mud without evidence should be ready to face countersuits. She's done being the victim. Now, she's on the offensive. That warning carries weight, because let's be real, Cardi has the resources, the legal firepower, and now the experience to protect herself. For anyone thinking of targeting her in the future, this case is a flashing red light. Proceed with caution. Still, this case came at a cost. Cardi openly admitted she missed moments she'll never get back, like her kid's first day at school. Those are losses no amount of legal victory can replace. But by sharing that pain, she's humanized herself in ways we rarely see from celebrities. She's not just a star, she's a mother, a fighter, and a woman navigating a world that sometimes feels stacked against her. Fans have rallied behind her stronger than ever. Hashtags like Yar Justice for Cardi and Dar Stand With Cardi trended across social media. Supporters are calling her the voice of women who've been wrongfully accused or dragged into battles they never asked for. Cardi's authenticity continues to make her relatable and unstoppable. But critics, too, have doubled down. Some argue Cardi's fiery reactions are proof she's volatile. Others warn that her threats of countersuits could backfire. Yet even in criticism, one thing is clear: people can't stop talking about Cardi B. And that's the power she holds. So what's next? Cardi says she's focusing on her family, her music, and her peace. But make no mistake, if another lawsuit comes her way without merit, she's ready to fight back harder than ever. This case wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new Cardi, a tougher, wiser, and even more unapologetic version of the star we've always known. And so, as we close this chapter, one question lingers in the air. Will the world finally learn to stop underestimating Cardi B? Or will someone else try to test her patience, only to end up facing the full force of her legal and personal firepower? Either way, one thing is clear: Cardi B isn't just surviving the storm. She is the storm.